Bună ziua! Bine v-am găsit din frumoasul hotel Moxie, făcut de prietena noastră Eliza Iochina. So I will switch in English. So we are here to talk a little bit about a project we developed together with British Council Romania. It's let's say an exchange of ideas and artist vision about life, about beauty, about design, about sustainability. Okay, so we are here. I am here with three wonderful ladies: Maria Neneciu from RDV, Lola Lely from London, and Cristiana Tăutu from British Council. So I will. She is the head of arts in British Council. Cristiana Tăutu. Lola, she's the designer visiting us and try to build up together something, and we will find more about this in our discussion. And Maria, she will try to sell RDV this year, where you already know more about this. But the idea is why we are together and why this project it's very exciting for us. When I'm saying for us, it's our association, Ivan PATZAIKIN Association, but also the network România Tradițiilor Creative, in which we try to bring this spirit of how we learn sustainability from tradition and how we bring tradition in our contemporary work today, in design, in new models of development, or new way of building this world around us. So I will start with Cristiana to tell us a little bit about their project, this initiative, which is in the third year, if I understand right. Yeah? It started 3 years ago. So, Cristiana, please.
So the program, which is called Circular Catalyst, has started 3 years ago with basically a little bit of a research of what's happening on the local scene and how is this seen from the UK side, let's say. So what we were aiming from the beginning is to grow the level of knowledge and transfer of knowledge between UK and Romania. We did an open call in 2020, if I'm not mistaken, to select and invite cultural practitioners involved in design and crafts from the UK to come to Romania and learn more about the culture and learn more about our tradition in crafts in general. That was the frame back then. Of course, in time, COVID came, different things happened, so the program stopped for a while. And I'm super happy that we could start the conversation again, and that out of the 6 people selected back in 2020, 5 of them were still interested and have accepted our invitation to join us in Romania and be hosted by 5 organizations working with traditional makers and connected to rural Romania. So Lola is almost finishing her residency in Romania together with Patzaichin, and within the frame of Tradiții Creative, which I think has this beautiful philosophy of looking at rural Romania as a maybe advantage or rewriting this narrative that rural is maybe not as developed or there's not a lot of richness there, which I think we all now agree that is false. So just a quick summary of where Circular Catalyst is right now. This is a British Council program, which is part of the greater response, global response to social and environment issues, with a focus on design and crafts and sustainability in Romania. We are exploring two themes. One of them is the relationship between rural and urban and how this system of traditional knowledge is still being transmitted, let's say, to the urban and to the new generations. And on the other hand, we're looking at the potential of crafts and manual practices, let's say, in the well-being of communities.
Okay.
I think that's enough from me at this point.
Maria, can you tell us a little bit about the context of REDV? What will happen next?
We are very happy to be partners in this project with British Council and Romania Traditional Creative, as we have been interested in crafts and how they relate to contemporary design for many years now, and I think this initiative is very, very valuable for all the practices in Romania that hosted the designers and the artists from UK, as well as for a wider audience. In this regard, we are going to have a small exhibition during Romanian Design Week, where you will be able to see some of the pictures and the documentation regarding this residency in Romania, as well as a little bit of the process behind what the artists and the designers worked together. We really hope that in the future more and more local designers will be interested in how to take this traditional knowledge and especially the techniques and the crafts and to integrate it in their practices. I think for the local scene, it's a very important asset, and I think it could be well developed in the future. Romanian Design Week is going to be in May, starting 12th of May to the end of the month in Piața Amzei, where you will also be able to see the exhibition that we're developing together. And I think I should also mention that we also did some talks and podcasts with some of the UK practitioners that were invited in Romania, and you will be able to see those as well on Romanian Design Week Instagram page and YouTube channel, where I think some of them were able to perhaps develop a little bit more details regarding their practices, and as well as a sort of a feedback of how the residencies went in Romania. And I think there are some really nice stories that I'm sure you will enjoy, and I think that's it for me.
Okay. As you know, what we are trying to do is to somehow it's very in line with the British Council project. So we are trying to connect the local community from Danube Delta with urban area in such a way where so we people from urban area to learn from the community, and the community to learn from us, but not the bad habits which we bring with us from the city. And I think this negotiation and this dialogue, in our opinion, can be mediated by artists, by creativity, and probably I mean, Lola will tell you a little bit about her impression of our visit. But at the end of the day, so we start this process of building the content of the museum, which is not only physical content, but it's also a strategy for on long term based on our let's say accumulated knowledge through our network Tradiții Creative. So we'll try the museum to be like an example of how you are dealing with this, and to become not only a place for visiting when you are a tourist in Danube Delta, but to be a real lab of innovation and working together with community and artists. So, Lola, you are the special guest on this discussion.
No, we're all here special guests. I'm Lola. I'm a designer and maker from London. I was one of the artists who responded to the British Council's open call 2.5 years ago. I was interested in that open call because of my past work with local communities. So it was in Romania, in northern Vietnam, but also in London as well, and working with these communities to create almost like a circular system and a local economy. So really using some of the talent which was available locally and materials, and trying to create again entrepreneurial thinking within these communities to create a livelihood. So I really thought that I could, on this particular program, that I could offer some of my insight, and also, some of the experiences I'd had with these communities, and how to build successful systems, really. And so really kind of working with the communities, and not coming in as an outsider looking in and sort of having already made ideas. So as Cristiana said, that the program couldn't go ahead at that time because of COVID, and we were all very disappointed, but I'm really pleased that 2 years later there was a way to actually go back, and of course I said yes immediately. And so the trip, which was organized by Teodor and his team, has been fantastic. It was, like he said, a deep dive into everything, the Romanian culture, the landscape. Going on that trip, which felt like a 2-day safari on the river, meeting residents there, the community in Mila 23, the cuisine. Everything. It was really very, very inspiring, insightful, and it's going to probably take me some time to reflect and absorb all that. But again, I can see, in terms of the potential, my role as a designer, and my role as well as designer is more than just designing things. I think it's about creating some sort of social impact, social change. But really empowering these communities to create something, and with my perspective and fresh eyes, is maybe I can instigate some of that and help to trigger some of that new thinking, and help the community to perhaps value what they already have, but also to innovate somewhat. And this is where Teodor is very much like the ecosystem, the magnet that really kind of draws people together, and very much of a forward thinker, but honouring and traditioning the past, and the past of Ivan, who is definitely the thing that brought us all together here. So my experience has been just really positive. It's exceeded my expectation. I think the landscape is very much, I feel, connected to the people, really, and it's about really making that connection between the city and the rural areas, and finding that understanding between the two spheres. And it's not, well, from my opinion, I think it's maybe for the rural villages is maybe not to romanticize too much of the past. We need to honour the past, but also think about young people and how to invigorate these areas, and also to look at sustainable and viable means and opportunities for future success, I think I would say.
So in a way, the visit is. No, I have my microphone. So I think it's also for us, for our network. It's interesting how an outsider enter in a territory and look not like an anthropologist, look like let's say entrepreneurial way of seeing the potential of bring value to some local resources or human resources or and this is very interesting because the end of the day, and this is what we are trying to promote with our network, România Tradițiilor Creative. So we try to to make an overlap, if you want, to avoid the ethno movement, which is, in our opinion, it's a very, let's say, easy way to try to capture the tradition and to say I make traditional, inspired by tradition, new products. In our opinion, ethno way, it's a very how to say damaging because in the end you are not in fact capture the real value of a community, and you just, if you want, you steal some copyrights of the local community, but without the value behind. So we are saying the percentage of failure and in the end to end up in a very kitschy product, it's very, very high. I mean, it's an exception when somebody take only some decoration and transform it in something valuable. Most of the time, these end up in something without future, without. So, this is the reason why I think it's important for artists to go deep in a community and to see the resources, which can start from a very simple, I don't know, way of manage one of the resources, I don't know, a field, how they fish, or and to look to the people, what they like, what attract them, the local people, which are their skills, which can be used, yeah, and not to look like a community. You know, we just hire some old ladies which make traditional models, and it's like a loan. I come a designer and I tell them what to do and I pay them, and it's like a very, how say, consumeristic way of understanding the value of these skills. So, and I think it was very interesting, and I have to tell you, Lola, because I was very careful what you are saying, even sometimes I was busy with others. But it's interesting because it's exactly what I expect from you, because you are coming from a more mature, let's call it, market of this type of design, and British market, it's famous. They were one of the, let's say, of the pioneers in how you bring craft in contemporary products. So, and I think it's important for our design community to look more pragmatic, if you want, but not not in, as I said, not in this commercial way. How you, how you take free of charge some copyrights and try to use it. So it's a more, let's say, you need to enter in a more more deeply in this relation and to understand a little bit, but you have in the same time to look to the market and to understand a little bit which are the requests of the urban market, because at the end of the day money are in the urban area. So how you connect, and it's also a connection through the product with the community. I mean, a good design product can in a way be in the same time a marketing for tourism in the area, can be identity, let's say a declaration of identity for a community, can be local economy development, can be probably right now, and this is another value of our network, is because we think that traditional culture is 100% circular, sustainable by definition. I mean, this is probably the most important value of the local culture.
Can I just add something? So, you know, in the UK we do have a very strong platform seen in terms of design, but what we're really in danger of is actually the system, the manufacturing. Again, loads of factories and skills are closing every single day because people are not able, because there isn't a market for certain types of traditions, like manufacturing traditions. And so what's really important is finding ways to, as a designer, to work with these factories by helping them to diversify, which is what you're saying about, you know, if we work with this circular system in, you know, these rural villages, it's about perhaps also helping them to diversify as well. So, you know, retaining these skills, but perhaps in new ways of working, so maybe new products, so that, again, new products, or, you know, it could be helping to the local tourism economy. So that's really important as well, and this is where I think it's quite interesting to identify that if there is something which has been lost and you say it's too kitsch and you don't want to turn it into a craft village, but what can people do with these skills that actually is more relevant and more, you know, contemporary, and possibly brings them more money? Because I think it's, you know, we have to accept that young people perhaps don't want to spend hours, you know, making something which isn't relevant to the market. But, you know, if there was an opportunity to, for the older generation has a certain skill to pass this on, but then, you know, change it to a different object, which, you know, could bring in more economic sort of value, then perhaps, you know, that would be a skill that can be retained and moved on, but it just evolves. I think it's also always about kind of, you know, evolving something so that it's relevant for what we need today, and therefore it can really capture the younger audience, and this is the way to transfer knowledge and skill.
So the idea of this meeting was much more to be like a discussion. So we are open to talk about these ideas, and so who wants to start, break the ice? Oana, zi. Oana, she's a member of our team in Tradiții Creative from the beginning, and she knows a lot from anthropological view of this subject. Please, Oana.
Hello, hi Lola. Very nice to meet you. Thank you, Doro, for the presentation. Yeah, actually, I'm an anthropologist with a double specialization, let's say, in economics. and I'm part of the Creative Tradition Network as well from the beginning with Doru. I'm very happy that you are here, and actually I have a lot of questions, so I will try to to be in a way short to let the others as well to ask you their questions. So my first question is regarding your motivation, because I'm very curious how you started, and if you had some kind of development, you started from something, and after that, due to your experience or your, I don't know, meetings and this kind of, let's say, practical experiences as you had here in Delta, or residencies that you had, how you transform yourself, and how did you come to this conclusion that this is the way, this is the path, to use the natural materials and after that transform them to work even with the communities as well? So I will stop here.
Because we have only one microphone for the camera, so I think first she can answer right now to this question and we come back.
Yeah, that's a really interesting question, and I'm kind of starting to reflect on how it's sort of not linear, I think. So I studied industrial design at the Royal College of Art, and as most designers, when you study on a course, you learn about process and you learn about design and materials, and then later on I got a job in a design agency. But I don't know, that I think my own personality, I'm sort of very collaborative, very curious about materials, and I was always questioning, like, why are we only doing this in a studio? Because it felt very disconnected from the objects and emotional design, basically. So there was something really missing. It was like, it felt like we were assuming human behavior, even though we had no idea if people were going to react with the objects in that way, and always I felt like there was something missing. So, I was trying to find, I was questioning that fact, and then I left that kind of world, and I thought I'm going to become an independent designer, because then I can choose the projects and I can actually spend more time delving deeper into, the brief and really understanding it from everything from culturally, but also from a design perspective, like really look at something 360 degrees. And I think it's the British Council might be one of the first projects where I thought, actually, maybe as a designer, it's not just about the outcome is an object. Perhaps, it was there was workshops or something in terms of it had nothing to, there was no end outcome of having to go through all these processes. And I think that was when I actually thought, this is, it can be very fluid. Being a designer means that you're also, a consumer, you're also, a subject of research. You can also look at other, models out there. And also afterwards, a few years later, I also started teaching as well, so teaching in design universities. And I looked at the curriculum as well. I just thought, this is not really the way that education should be looking at design. You shouldn't start like that. It's just, it's missing out on so much. So I always try to build into the program an element of adventure, an element of going out into, field research, basically, really kind of connecting to the environment, the material, and seeing how that goes, and having this sort of more of a fluid system. And obviously later on, always being maybe, understanding the role of a designer is, you have more impact. You can really make a you should be more engaged and question a bit more, and not be introduced at the last stage of a process, as often happens. Designers the last to fit out an interior, or designs a table or chairs for a hospital, and it shouldn't be like that. You should be definitely part of the conversation from the very beginning. So that's what I try to kind of like really champion and talk about that, and question and push that all the time in design education, but also in my own work. And yeah, and also collaboration. I mean, that's a really strong feature of my work, collaborating, and then all this stuff about sort of circular systems and sustainability. It's really embedded. Everything's really embedded. So it's kind of really important to do things with context and not be kind of disconnected from that. So.
And I would have another small question, and after that we will have time for the discussion.
Wait, let me get the microphone in order to...
I was curious in the same time that you said you had you are working with communities in a way of empowering and to make them conscious of their, let's say, of their value of techniques or materials or products that they can develop in their own community. So I was thinking, in a way, how do you choose the communities that you are working in, and what kind of principles, if there are some kind of principles, what attracts you to those communities to go there and work with those people? And if you can tell us a little bit, how is the relationship with the people that you are working with? How do you start? How do you communicate with them, or I don't know, how do you work with them? How is the knowledge sharing as well? How you take care of cultural appropriation, maybe, if it is the case? And
so I think each community is very context-based as well. You can't really apply one type of way with everyone. I think you have to be very sensitive and do a little bit of research, but don't come with too much what's the word again? Preconceived ideas, because again, you know, I don't live in that community, so I wouldn't really know. There are subtleties that happen with every community, and it's more, you know, it's a way of life as well, and you have to be conscious of that as well. I mean, just an example, like a London project. You know, I'm a Londoner, but different areas of London are very different in terms of economic, social conditions. And so 2 years ago, I worked with a community in Barking, and Barking in London is one of, you know, it's London, but it's one of the poorest, developed areas in the city. There is, you know, a high rate of, so there's a lot of it's very ethnically diverse. But, you know, and lots of women who, you know, have been out of work for a long time, and they're at home caring for children, elderly parents. So high levels of lack of education and employment. So again, you have to look at sort of social conditions as well. So initially, it's like starting very simply with workshops, physical making workshops where people are invited to come and designed during hours when the children are at school, so you've got to be very conscious of that. And really, well, my way is always to create workshops where you don't need to speak very much, because sometimes English is not even their first language, so it has to be very practical and very visual. So I try to do very practical and very visual things so that everyone can participate without any prior knowledge, and it really is about tactility. Sometimes I, you know, just introduce materials and people can touch it and smell it and feel it, because sometimes, again, with many objects, people don't know where things come from and what the material is, so sometimes the workshops are very simple like that, and then later on, you know, build a rapport, and again, it's just about having a group, and it's not about me being in the front dictating. It really is about kind of gauging the mood and the feeling of the group, and you know, sort of teasing out confidence. It's about building confidence, really, and that's really, you know, I think how we start is try and build a rapport, build confidence, have a few almost like objects that people can interact with. So that's kind of like, you know, the generally with the format that I use, and then afterwards, you know, we see how it goes, and if you feel that there's an appetite for to do something, then you know, we push it further. But during these workshops, a lot of conversations come out, and people then start to tell, you know, each other and about, you know, their experiences, what they do, and all of a sudden you realise, someone's, you know, has, you know, it makes something at home, or someone's a really good cook, or someone does that, and actually all of these things are very transferable, and you can diversify, and there's a bunch of skills there already, and you know, you just have to sort of try and sort of, you know, fuse it together, and so that's how it works. But yeah, but again, it's very specific, but sometimes, let's say for example, if I've worked for a community in northern Vietnam, and they have very specific skills that they've had, but it's endangered of being lost. So, like say, hemp weaving, batik, indigo dyeing. You sort of like again try to open it up a bit more, because sometimes these skills are very much like retained, and sometimes they don't want to share within their own communities as well. So the older generation, they keep it, they think that the young people don't want to know about it, so they sort of, you know, don't invite them in. And it's again about sort of trying to open up so that there is a level playing ground, so there's less hierarchy. And we do that through, again, talking and food. Food is sometimes helpful, so always at lunchtime we try and eat together so that it can break, you know, open sort of differences and just loosen people up a bit. So the different strategies of how to connect people, and it really is just about connecting and being confident and comfortable with each other.
Yeah, and I think I think this is very similar in all these, let's say, traditional communities. They have this perception what they know. It's not anymore relevant or important. Even they are very proud of what they have. And one of the problem we discover, one of the big problem is this ethno movement, which make them, I mean, they get appreciation for something which is, let's say, in reality not very relevant, like the ethno movement. And I think it's very important to work also with their pride, because every community, in a way, they have this local pride, which in our days is very shaky, because they don't know anymore what is really relevant and to be proud about it, you know. And one of the objectives of our network, one, as you know, is to make them aware, proud about their way of life, which is, as I said, 100% sustainable, circular, whatever, which are right now very trendy concept. But in the same time, to explain, this doesn't mean they will be stuck on the life of 50, 100 years ago. It's just the way of doing things, but the modernization of their community, it's an ongoing process. You can't stop it. The idea is how you make this modernization in such a way to keep what is relevant, what is identity for their community, to be proud, but in the same time to offer them, let's say, not to offer you solution, to find solution together with them, as Lola said. I think this is a process very interesting, and you need a lot of creativity in this, and creativity. But in the same time, you need sensibility. You need, let's say, how you call it in English, empathy, yeah, for this, and respect for this community, because they really have something which we lost in the city, and we have to identify and to make them to feel they are not patronized by you from the city, as we discussed before. So This why I think this is the future of development, because everybody now is talking most of the time about sustainability connected with technology. You say, oh, we have technology, but if you look to the real life, in fact, the most complicated thing in this transition from a new model of economy and life, sustainable economy or circular economy, the most difficult thing is people mentality, behavior and mentality. And after we have to deal with technology, with financing, with and when you talk about mentality and behavior, you are talking about very how you say, very personal and emotional involvement of each individual. So if you go to very personal, so which are the value which you based your changing of mentality? So you don't have to change your values of the community, especially, as I said, the community already, the grounds are very sustainable, if you want. So you have just to go back and bringing in the contemporary period and keep what is valuable and change only the way you are using, let's say, this legacy you get in the local community. And this is something I think it's trendy right now, also in the artistic area. But you play around because, and this is very interesting what Lola said. She, in a way, her way of doing things, she moved from visual, from object to process, to interaction, field research, and all this part. And I think this is a lesson we learn. Yes?
I just wanted to ask about the materials and about your process of discovering new materials and techniques. And I'm also curious to see what you've discovered while doing these kind of workshops in different places. Like, are the techniques very different or are they similar? Do you find that the materials are about the same, or is it a whole different thing when you go from one place to another?
Well, first of all, I don't think I discover materials because they're already there. I think what I do is I look at it in a different way. So, just for example, I have been using hemp and natural dyes and beeswax a lot in the work, and these materials definitely are very different in each of the places that you find them because they're natural materials. So where they grow, and they really change depending on the natural environment. And again, it's just about, I think what I do is is observation. So I see what is done, and then I kind of have my own kind of interpretation, my own kind of design knowledge, and maybe an understanding about sort of waste systems and this circular and how precious materials are, because I'm coming from London, a place where we materials don't naturally grow like that. So therefore, I really do feel that these materials are very precious, and therefore that's why I kind of look at it in a way that is not abundant. So it's always looking at techniques that can minimize use of water or use of materials, but still create lots of impact. So for example, with natural dyeing, I've been looking at combining sort of new technologies, like for example screen printing, which is let's say more of an industrial new invention to natural dyeing, and trying to screen print natural dye so that you still get colour and pattern, but you're using so much less water and process, and it's more scalable as well. So it's looking at things like that, like trying to combine sort of a modern sort of way of modern interpretation, modern technology with traditional techniques. So that's quite interesting as well, to be able to combine the two. I think I'm always looking at ways of working with artisans and past craft, but looking at other ways of doing things, perhaps in a slightly more sustainable way, and in a way that is really sort of looking at the value of materials, and also not trying to copy the past. There's no point me trying to be a better weaver or a better that. I'm there to like sort of just pick at something and finding something interesting and something important to like to extract, and hoping to to find ways that could help it to develop in an interesting way, or preserve looking at ways to minimize the impact of water usage, energy usage, but also creating like a sort of interesting different interpretations and outcomes.
So it's a way of giving them a modern spin.
A modern spin, but also looking at maybe like a problem solving, looking at a problem and trying to see if there's a way to do things better sometimes.
Question. So just following up on this question, maybe you could tell us a little bit about what sort of resources, from this perspective of a designer with all this experience in the back, what did you find specifically in Romania, or what brought interest maybe?
I think the interest I've kind of discovered on this trip, because again it's not doing the field trip, I really didn't know what to really look at, and again doing sort of googling stuff is like, again, it's just a waste of time. I think you really have to be here to appreciate that. And there's a lot. I think there is a lot of potential in terms of the nature, but also to be very careful about, just because it's there doesn't mean that you have the right to use it as well. But again, just sort of thinking about how to connect raw materials with production and design and these communities and their culture. I think it's sort of like, it's in my mind, and also it always takes time to percolate. It's not like you just come up with a solution. It's a process of really collaborating and as Tora was saying, like doing something which is sort of meaningful for that community as well, and not just having, looking at it from an opportunistic point of view. Because it's all like really, it's all tied up with their way of life as well. So if their way of life changes, lots of other things have to shift and change as well. So you always have to be constantly like on your toes and looking at all these different pieces. You can't stay still and just looking at one thing like, the process or a material, because, if something happened to the climate and the materials and the things change, in that the raw materials change, or the climate changes, we have to adapt. I think we always have to be very fast to adapt and to see the bigger picture. I don't know if did that answer your question about materials? It's about being very adaptable, very flexible. Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Pinpoint, but I'm very curious because I think it's really interesting to be able to go from place to place and just see, oh, they work with earth here, but the earth is different, and how do they do it? How do they apply it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think exchanging knowledge is really important as well. So again, maybe some of these communities, they have never travelled outside of their community. So, someone like me can talk about it and suggest things. Say, oh, actually, I've seen it done this way. It's kind of quite interesting, and it'd be really, I think that's happened throughout history. That cross-fertilization, it's always happened. It's really important that it happens, because if otherwise you become very insular, very inwards-looking, and that's when things are in danger of disappearing, because people didn't see it coming. People didn't know, didn't look outside. Very kind of. So I think it's important.
This is why it's, for example, from this perspective, Romania it's very, let's say, fertile ground in terms of community, because you have such a big mixture. So if you start having in mind to go in a region and try to look, because right now, if you really want to go in the, to dive in the local things, you need to look. I like to say you have to look under the carpet, because the carpet right now usually it's bought it from Dedeman, for IKEA or Dedeman, and what they really have valuable, it's under the carpet. So you have to dive a little bit and to have in mind this, in my opinion, this concept of local culture. It's organic, connected with local natural patrimonium, and you have to look in this ecosystem and to look after the let's say the triggers, the things which you can build something sustainable, something contemporary, looking to this connection in between these two things. And this is another, let's say, technique, if you want, of field research, because you have a lot of people which they are just try to go only on the final product, like oh, I like this ceramic, traditional ceramic, but they are not making the connection between how, which was the process, why is this type of flower, or I don't know, why this color there, which is the story behind, how you connect this with the local community and understand. And probably you are using not the form, you are using the technique, or you are using the symbol of that color, or you are using the I don't know, the practical meaning of that color. I don't know why. It's very depending on the. So in a way, our philosophy, let's call it like this, very philosophy, yeah. It's give you some new tools of looking to the things, to the community, but also this traditional culture, but to look from this perspective of organic, integrated connection with nature around them. And basically, it's which are the values right now we are talking when we say sustainable, circular. We are talking about local resources, community, so how you deal with social, economic, and environment, and surprise, the traditional culture solve all these problems very efficient. Of course, again, on top of this, you bring innovation, you bring technology, you bring a new way of thinking and using this in economical terms. But at the end of the day, the philosophy is there. So, other question?
Yeah. How can we help the local community to more use more the local materials for the circular economy? I'm thinking here about the Danube Delta, where they use a lot of reeds for building the rooftops. But now it's getting more and more expensive to use that material in the Delta, because it's getting exported in other countries. And I was thinking, how can we help the community from the city?
But it's not expensive because it's exported in our country. It's expensive because it's not very well, I mean, it's not collected enough, so the capacity of collecting the reed is very low, so you are not covering the market enough. So in Danube Delta it's a very simple principle which is not yet working at all. So the principle, and it's not in the Danube Delta, it's everywhere in Romania. So look to the tradition. They use all the resources locally. Yeah. Okay. So looking from a different scale of economy, are these resources, if they are going out from the region, they are going like raw material, or they are going like products with value added to them? Yeah. So I can give you a very simple example with we invent for the local people this legislation for local gastronomy. Why? Because instead to sell the fish with 10 leis per kilo, raw fish, they can sell it with 50 leis per kilos because they are preparing for the tourist. The same thing is another concept, which is pesca tourism. What this means? When the fishermen take out from the net the fish, if he is, let's say, accompanied, if he is together with a group of tourists next to him, he will do the same job, but he will be paid for this, how we say, experience, yeah? And instead to take 100 kilos of fish and sell it with 10 leis, 1,000 lei, he can take 10 kilos of fish, cooking after this for the tourist, and he takes the same amount of money, but using only 10 kilos of the fish which is in the nature. So using put less pressure on the resources, natural resources, you get a better price and a better income for the community. So what you can do in Danube Delta, look to what kind of resources they have, natural resources they have. Keep in mind you need to use traditional way of using resources, because all the communities, they know what means regeneration of the resources. So how you use a resource in such a way not to destroy it, to keep it, to leave the space, the natural time for regeneration, and take these resources but not sell it as it is, bring some value on it, and design can bring value, yeah, but also you need probably for some things technology to bring value, and offer to the local community to a very low price access to this raw material, and what is going out from the region must be with added value. So in a way you find the equilibrium between using locally for local houses and export it outside with added value in manufacturing or whatever. Yeah, so it's a very simple simple process, but it's very complicated to introduce it because we are now living in a free market, and free market means what is very, how to say, easy to be speculate, and all this process you need an investment, a long-term strategy, planning, and sometimes in our society is speed and opportunity, how to say, use opportunistic trade is very powerful. And okay, so in a way you can have in mind what I said before, to recreate a new type of community based on a very contemporary, but which you help them to keep their identity and traditional culture, but upgrade it to 21st century. So basically this is what we are trying, all of us, through different tools and
I would only like to add that also from the local design community perspective, I think it's important to focus a little bit more on processes rather than final products. So I think this sort of discussion is also very valuable for designers, because I like to joke about it, but the fact that Romania sort of has a not very developed industrial design scene, it's also a sort of opportunity, because especially for the young designers, that they somehow need to focus a little bit more on this sort of experimental design and to speculate a little bit and to focus more on processes and how you adapt to the new global issues and so on. And I think it would be also very interesting for this sort of discussion and practices to be promoted more also in the educational sphere, like universities, because the curricula in Romania also lacks this sort of approach, I guess. Yes, I think it's important for all the organizations and, I don't know, festivals, design week and so on, to try to focus more in the future on this sort of practices and approaches, because I do believe that for the local scene, they could be a strategy, especially for the product design scene, I guess.
At the end of the day, it's also a matter of economics, because who will finance this process, transition process? Because you need to invest in people, I don't know, local people, but also outsider experts, and who, at the end of the day, you need to play in this, let's say, market, because without money you can't change things. And at the same time, making money, you have to find the equilibrium, how you do this in such a way not to disturb too much what is going right now, because Danube Delta produce a lot of money. I mean, who thinks Danube Delta it's a poor area? It's wrong. It's not poor. It's a rich area. The problem is they make money, but without taking care of the environment, and there are big problems with the environment because of the using of these resources extracted raw, and send it out instead to build up value on the local resources. Yeah.
There is a very fine line of tourism, local tourism and sustainable tourism, and over tourism. Last year when I've been to Delta, there were a lot of big boats that were cutting the grasses where fish lay their eggs. And
so it's a paradox. You are saying it's a poor area, and a lot of people talking about accessibility. They are it's very hard to access them, and at the same time you have 1,000 boats with each of them it's up to 15,000-20,000 euros each. So so the idea is how you can manage this, how you can find the equilibrium, and design creativity. It's also about communication in this, through design, through involvement. It's not about saving. Everybody's talking, let's save this community. No, let's bring them on the right track, and we save us if we save Danube Delta like an ecosystem, and you have to look to this. Yeah. Okay, the last question, because we already 1 hour, and I don't want to become.
I know that you had more questions as well. So, do you want to share the time?
Yeah.
So, I try to envision, while you were talking, the concept of managing to keep all these resources in-house and the local communities learning how to take advantage of this resource and adding value to it. And I think that what design can be really helpful, and I'm curious if that is also your vision of it, is I imagine these people getting access to more resources and more money, and what do you do when you live in a house that is way too small with very traditional materials and then you have a lot of money? The tendency is to stop using local materials and start having like a bigger house that looks like the ones in Spain, and destroying the authenticity of the place because of that. And my question is, do you feel that after your workshops, when you talk to the communities, do they understand the value of the local design and of the local way of doing things?
No, doesn't work like this, at least in Romania. It works in a different way. Not through talking you can convince people. You have to show them the value of a new type of architecture, which the end of the day they are very pragmatic. What I get from this? And you have to show them, not to tell them. This is one of the big mistakes. Are a lot of trainings, discussion, workshop. No, you have to show them the value of doing something. Yeah, and the best way is to do it with some local, like a pilot project. And if they see the value of this, I mean, this brings more tourists, this brings more money to the community. This because on the other hand, it's very easy to buy a kit from Dedeman and to build you. This is what I'm saying. All the rural area in Romania is destroyed by ready-made construction kits. You can do it yourself if you want your house, almost. So the design is not anymore locally. It's imposed by the construction material market, and this is what is going on. So if you really want to do something, I don't think the people are so what you have to do is to put on the market the traditional material to make it available, more easy access, because nobody will go and cut his own reed and la 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 anymore when they can make money driving a boat. Yeah. So so you have to understand and to show them this thing will bring value to what they are doing, and not to convince them. It's a waste of time talking to the people. You have to show them, or to find some partners and show them, look, this is working. Yeah, and this is what România Tradițiilor Creative. So the network are people which they are doing this and show. So all the members are how to say doers. They are not trainers. They are doers, and show them the value. And if you can catch in this process, as I said, the local pride to be involved, to make them proud about what they have, but this proud must be placed in a very real thing, you know. Good? Somebody else? No? Thank you. So, the last announcement. Okay. So on 23rd of May, we will open a very interesting exhibition, part of the Romanian Design Week, in Mețere, Peasant Muzeul Țăranului. It's already a tradition. Every year we are coming with a new exhibition with Tradiții Creative, but this time we will be like how so a sum of all our work in the last 12 years with the association. It's called Ivan Patrimoniul, because after Ivan, in a way, all our work leave behind some, let's say, elements which I think will remain like values of the Delta and our values of Ivan, and keep in a way his memory, not in a very nostalgic way, in a very practical things. He'll leave some tools for the community. And and what is interesting, this exhibition, in fact it's a big workshop in the same time, because at the end of the exhibition on 5th of May, we supposed to have the content of the museum from Mila 23. So we build up the content of the museum in these 2 months in the exhibition hall, and translate it in August directly in the new building of the museum. So it's also a very experimental thing. So you can join us in this process and see how let's say the making of the museum, its development. And on 13th of September, I invite you, all of you, to join to the opening of the museum. Okay, thank you. Vă mulțumesc frumos și keep in touch.